So in this video I'm going to be discussing the issues that I think Manchester United have had with recent transfers, not really around each individual player, but the squad building strategy as a whole, before I then suggest the man who would be my ideal director of football. So I said it back in January, I don't think Patrick Dorgu was the right signing at that time, not because I don't rate him or think potential wise he could break into the United first team and hold down a starting position consistently, but mainly down to squad building and profiling. See, realistically, I don't think Dorgu is yet ready to be United's starting left wing back going into next season, week in, week out. I think output wise we need someone who's far more consistent in terms of their crossing in the final third, or someone who has the ability to go either way in 1v1 situations. Really and truly, he should be an understudy to a better and more offensive left wing back option, such as someone like Theo Hernandez for example. However, the issue is we already have Harry Amass and Diego Leon, who should be competing for the backup left wing back spot, and so by signing Dorgu, we've essentially got 3 left wing back options who all should be playing as the understudy, and probably need to sign another left wing back in the summer. But before I go any further, if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.co. They've got a variety of different current season and retro jerseys, including iconic retro shirts like this 99 Manchester United Champions League home shirt with Beckham 7 on the back, this 2010-2011 Lionel Messi shirt, or this Celtic shirt from 97 to 99 with Larson 7 on the back. If you use code Atlantis at checkout, you'll get a 10% discount, so I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comments section below. We should have just signed Alvaro Fernandez for his buyback in January, which alongside the 50% sell-on clause would have only cost us around £8.5 million, around £16.5 million less than what Dorgu cost. Fernandez is more suited to playing as a wing-back than Dorgu as well, who at the moment I think is more of a full-back than a wing-back, just like Dalot on the other side. And also in terms of crossing output in the final third, Fernandez at the moment is substantially better than Dorgu. But Dorgu isn't going to go out on loan next season, which means one of or both of Harry Amass and Diego Leon probably have to, which is slightly annoying because I do think Harry Amass is good enough to be an understudy at left wing back next season. And so we've essentially blocked Harry Amass's pathway into the first team by spending £25 million on a young player in his position who also needs time to develop and isn't really ready to be a starter week in, week out, especially at wing back where attacking output makes or breaks attacks due to there not being a natural winger ahead. And it's not even really about age, because Alvaro Fernandez is also young, but with Dorgu you can see that his game is very raw and unrefined. He's a bit clunky in possession in tight spaces, and to me in general he just seems a more conservative defensive option at left wing back, rather than the sort of offensive one that I would ideally like to see. And this is the main issue with the obsession around signing young players, particularly players under the age of 22 or 21, primarily based off potential without looking at the wider context of the squad, and the Lenny Yoro signing is a perfect example. In isolation, United signing Lenny Yoro is a great signing, clearly one of the most promising young centre-backs in Europe, and has a skill set to be able to play in a high-back line, and even at his age he's a pretty good ball-playing centre-back as well. However, when you look at the details and the context of the deal, it really didn't make much sense. First of all, he had 1 year left on his Lille contract, and Real Madrid, who were the other club going for him, were reportedly not even willing to go up to £30 million. He was also a teenager with only 1 year's experience of playing consistently in senior football. If you're dropping a fixed amount of £52 million on a centre-back, they've got to come in and be elite straight away. And that's not just for centre-backs, that's for any player you sign for that sort of fee. The other issue was that we also signed De Ligt and Mazraoui in the same summer, which means that when Yoro was signed, we pretty much knew he wasn't going to be a starter. So we spent £52 million on a player who wasn't going to be in our strongest starting 11, when that money could have gone on an elite level Sancho or Antony upgrade, or a Casemiro or Eriksen replacement. Or forget that, a left back, because remember Malacia and Shaw were eternally injured even at the start of the season, and we were using Dalot at left back at the start of the season. When you factor in the details and the context, the fact that Ineos and the fanbase were lauding the Euro deal as getting one over Real Madrid, and an example of shrewd negotiating, in hindsight, just like the Højlund deal, it looks a bit embarrassing. I think we got shafted on that deal considering the fee. I mean, how was it more than £35 million up front? Well, I'll give you my theory. I think it's George Mendes. We were chasing Ugarte for most of the summer, who, like Yoro, is one of Mendes' clients, and I think there must have been some conversation around Ugarte when the Euro deal was being negotiated. I would love to see the agent fees on each of the deals because it would give us a lot of insight, but every time I see George Mendes and Manchester United with more than one deal going on in the same summer, I do get worried. We had it previously with SEG and Ten Hag. We massively overpaid for Højlund, who was an SEG client, and there have been unsubstantiated reports that it was actually SCG who were blocking Manchester United's move for Amadou Onana, who ironically I think would have been perfect for Ruben Amorim's midfield double pivot. But to be honest, I can't even blame the agents because it's their job. And really this is purely down to Manchester United's stupidity. I mean, you're Manchester United. Do you have to rely so heavily on these individual agencies to get deals over the line? If we were getting elite level players that we wouldn't otherwise get, or paying below market value for the players, yeah, I could understand it. But the opposite is happening. And so this is why having an elite level experienced director of football with a proven track record is so important, which brings me on to how I think United's recruitment should operate and the director of football that I think could transform Manchester United into a title winning squad. So after the debacle of the Ten Hag era and Ineos restructuring the club hierarchy, I assumed that everyone had a solid idea of what the recruitment strategy was going forward, but apparently not, because people are still talking about Amorim getting his specific players. But the thing is, we aren't signing players for the head coach. We literally made that exact same mistake with Ten Hag. We are signing players with a specific skill set who can fit into Ruben Amorim or whoever the head coach is system, playing a given role in that particular system, but we aren't going to Amorim and asking him who he wants and then just signing those players, because the obvious issue with that strategy is that if you do have to change head coach, you now have to completely rebuild the squad because you've built it specifically for whoever that head coach was, when in reality a much better strategy is to build a team around a philosophy and the ideas of a director of football. Sign the director of football first and then the head coach. That makes a lot more sense than what United have done, which is bringing Dan Ashworth in but having Jason Wilcox and Omar Barada with seemingly just as much if not more influence over who the head coach is. So underneath a director of football there should be a head coach like Amorim, a head of youth recruitment someone like Christopher Vivell, and a head of first team recruitment like Jason Wilcox, along with other roles like head of player development and things like that, with Omar Barada working alongside the director of football when it comes to transfer negotiations and finances. When people are saying that the head coach needs 2 to 3 years, that's completely wrong. The time should be given to the director of football to formulate a 5 to 7 year plan. The structure and system in place should be so good that just like with the Red Bull clubs, the head coach becomes almost interchangeable without having to completely restart the project when one leaves. If your project falls apart when the head coach leaves, you've built your project on the wrong foundations. The man I've always thought would be the best option for a director of football role at Manchester United was Luis Campos, the former Monaco and Lille technical and sporting director and currently a strategic advisor at PSG. Now I'll break down why I think Campos' past history makes him a top candidate for this job, but first, what should be the responsibilities of a director of football? Well, currently at United under Ineos, I don't think you could really say that we have a director of football with the sort of influence that I think should be given to Campos. Either Jason Wilcox, who is the technical director, or Christopher Vivell, who is currently the director of recruitment, would probably be the closest thing to it. But if I was Ineos, I would appoint Campos with these specific objectives as the main director of football, with Wilcox and Vivell working underneath him. His first and main objective would be to build a player recruitment system for both the first team in the short, medium and long term, with youth team recruitment being separate but still under his influence, as United look to sign and develop players not just for the first team but also to loan out and potentially sell on for profit down the line. And a multi-club model would help facilitate this, but I'll leave my ideas for that to a separate video, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the bell for that. Campos would have the responsibility of assessing where modern football is going, which tactical systems and trends are becoming more and less valuable, what types of players do you need to thrive in the Premier League and also in Europe, and what coaches, players, development and training methods are the best way forward for United. From here, you then have Luis Campos work with the head coach, Ruben Amorim if Campos was appointed now, to go through and pick out specific requirements for players, specifically looking at the positions in the squad that Amorim feels needs improved. Amorim doesn't go to Campos and say he wants Giovanni Quenda, for example. He'd explain to Campos that his system needs a left-footed right winger who can provide ball carrying ability through the defensive and middle third, as well as dribbling ability in 1v1 situations in the final third. And then Campos would use his data models and scouts to come up with a shortlist of maybe 5 to 10 players who United could pursue, looking to narrow down the list to find the player who is best suited stylistically, age profile wise, and in terms of current and potential ability, with the expenditure and the overall value for money also being something that has to be factored in. Luis Campos would essentially be the man in charge of building a squad with specific players, using the outline of Amorim's system, style, principles and demands to do so. So overall, United need a director of football who can implement a coherent squad building strategy, not looking at each individual transfer in isolation, but instead looking at the wider context of the squad, factoring in both current and potential ability alongside age profile in order to build a title winning squad in the next 1 to 2 seasons, not simply signing a load of young players and simply assuming they're going to reach their potential in the next few years. And I think Luis Campos is the ideal man to do so. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.co, use code Atlantis at checkout for a 10% discount. I'll leave it linked in the description and comment section below, and if you do want to sign up to my Patreon to get access to my in-game Instagram group chat, I'll leave that linked on the end screen now.